Hi everybody, and welcome to this month's episode of the Social Wave Project podcast. My name is Sarah Francis, but everyone calls me Sez, and once a month I usually upload episodes once a month on my podcast where I talk to various guests about the things that they are passionate about and all the things that they do to raise awareness that's going on in this world. And today, in this month, I am joined by a special guest who is a friend of a special guest who I also interviewed, but he has an own podcast of his own talking about mental health. So with me, I am going to be talking with Connell Scholar. Connor, hello. Or Connell? Connell, the heat's not really doing well with me today. Anyway, Connell, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Yeah, I love the introduction. Absolutely fantastic, by the way. So thank you for having me on the podcast.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, and thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you, especially in this hot, sticky weather as well. Oh, I mean, British summer. Oh, but it's just like one of those things really that just like happened. So I think we'll probably move on like a little bit as well, really. But if you see us like drinking a little bit as well, don't worry, we're not gonna like do anything like that. It's a bit hot today, so we'll try and just hydrate ourselves as much as we possibly can, really. But yeah, anyway, moving on. So Connell, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So, hi, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Connell Scholar. I do my own podcast around mental health. I'm an ambassador for the Multi-Schools Council. I've got autism myself, so I do know the struggles that does entail with that. I do like my sport as well. So yeah, I reckon I've introduced myself pretty well there. I don't know if it's the best way that I've sold myself, but there we go. That's
Oh no.
basically the gist of who I am.
Oh no, that's perfect as well, because it's always good to dig deep into something that you really love. And then also, me and Connell, we're going to be talking about something that Connell is very passionate about, which is mental health, because mental health is a very big topic that's coming up recently, especially within the autism community. And it's not really much to talk about between like various different people outside of social media, because mental health is it's a very it's about like it's a topic that people don't really want to talk about, but social media lately it's been opened up a little bit more, and Connell has got a special podcast on this on a special podcast on mental health. Why can I not speak today? Connell has actually run a whole podcast dedicated to mental health, so I'm going to leave it all down to Connell to talk about how autism and mental health came to be, especially within his own experiences, but then also how he ran the podcast and set it up as well. So Connell, take it away.
Okay, so I came up with the idea of doing a podcast from a few podcasters that I've like listened to before. So I was a big fan of the True Geordie podcast that I like listened to, which delved into all sorts of topics, but also not only that, but there was a few episodes that delved into mental health, and I was just inspired by the way they opened up about it. So I sort of based my model of the podcast based on that. And when I came up with this idea, I thought, do I do this? I'd put it off for quite a long time because I did want to do a podcast, but I'd put it off for quite a few months because of various other things. But I was like, Joe, I've got to put this idea into action, because there is people out there that can do with education, that can learn a lot about mental health and the stigmas that surround it. So it's pretty much I get guests on to talk about their experiences. So series 3 will be coming out in July. So if you want to follow my Facebook page, like Time Out of Connell and Co, please do check that out. So I also have a co-host coming on for series 3.
That's really interesting. And can you give us a little clues of who it's going to be?
Okay, so I'm an ambassador for an organisation called the Multi-Schools Council. So basically, I've pretty much announced it on my Facebook page. So again, you can go and check. So again, people can go and check that out. But yeah, he's basically an ambassador for an organisation that I'm also an ambassador of, which is the Multi Schools Council. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, Says.
No, I haven't actually. But can you explain a little bit for those who don't know about it?
Okay, absolutely. So the Multi Schools Council is an organisation that was started off in Essex by one of my former teachers, Kieran Pearce. He basically started off this idea going into schools. It was originally 4 schools to start off with, and then over the years it exponentially increased. So there's over 350 schools in Essex that have now signed up, and it's about breaking down perceptions in disabilities, mental health, and all other conditions. So it's basically just breaking down those barriers, breaking down the stigma that surrounds, say, disability and mental health, and getting children's voices out there. Because one of the key components about the Multi Schools Council is children's voices are important and need to be heard.
Yes, I definitely couldn't agree more, really, especially in these times, really, where there's a lot of bullying going involved, and there's a lot of things that can impact mental health, such as schoolwork and trying to keep up on everything. So trying to get up from school and such, and then also making friendships to see who gets like the most popular clothes to wear, and sometimes come to like very serious issues such as racism and sexism and all of that as well. And I've heard that a lot of people have been chatting on to various radio stations in the UK at the moment, saying that society is getting worse because of these issues. And I could see why there are charities that have to be so dedicated to look after children and their mental health as well.
Yeah, and I would say as well that I do feel like society is almost going backwards in its fight against bigotry, homophobia, racism, sexism. You would think it's going backwards because I'm going to go on about a story, and I'm sure my cousin won't mind me saying about this. But recently, as obviously this is being recorded, my cousin and his boyfriend got abused for simply who he is. And I was absolutely saddened and flabbergasted, because it's almost like we're back in the 70s where lesbian and gay couples can't show affection in public to each other without the fear of abuse. And that is something that's not on. And my cousin is a kind-hearted individual with such great empathy, and he's so talented. And and that just absolutely saddened me when I heard about it. I think what needs to change is, people need to be educated about these issues. They need to know about these issues specifically, not just mental health, but other things that continue to be such a disease in our society, and such as the bigotry, the racism, the homophobia, and all of that. And that's something that has got to change. And I know I'm going on a passionate rant about this here, and it sounds like I'm just ranting continuously, but this is something that I'm passionate about, is changing people's perceptions around things, educating them, because I'll say this, the world is a better people for having people like my cousin in it.
That's very well said there. I really couldn't agree more, because I know that it is really shocking and jumping onto that, I know a few people who are in gay and lesbian relationships as well. And one of them is a really close friend of mine. And it's just so surprising, really, that they don't. I've never heard of any of them getting bullied just because of who they are, because I really don't know that. But I know, and I can imagine for so many people, it is going to become an everyday fear, and it's like waking up in a nightmare almost, even if your thoughts and thinking about it are in a nightmare as well.
Yeah, and it is almost like a nightmare. You are right there. It's almost you're asleep and you can't get out of this nightmare. It's almost like your body shuts down. And I can imagine, and when someone, I don't know, approaches you and intimidates you, and says, these horrible things, that could be intimidating for anyone.
I definitely agree with that there. And then also there is like loads of things that's going on really, and especially at the time of this recording as well, so many bits of the news as well, there's like shocking figures going on, and you get like loads of different things and I know this is going to be very sensitive to some people who listen to this, children who are under 11 and being told to show pornographic pictures and take pornographic pictures of themselves to send to teachers, to boys our age, just for fun, and also to strangers, complete strangers in the nowhere on the internet, and you don't know where they're going to end up as well. But it's just so shocking within itself, and it's something that people don't really say because they are too ashamed, or they get threatened, and most of the threats can be very bad, saying, if you tell anyone, I'm going to, but so I won't say, but if you go like with my fingers to my throat and then go to the side, you know where I'm coming from with this.
Absolutely. It's just absolutely disgusting that children are being made and manipulated into doing those things. And and with social media, it can be incredibly dangerous now. And with the epidemic of the mental health crisis due to this pandemic, social media can be such a damaging tool for those children, because we constantly compare ourselves to other people. We constantly compare ourselves to other people simply because they might have this particular gift that we all want. They might be on holiday and living their best life, and we all get a bit envious and jealous of that. There is we are a very comparative society, if comparative is even a word. But the point I'm trying to make is, children and adults shouldn't have to compare themselves to other people just to simply, live their best life or achieve a certain thing. There's no timescales. Don't listen to society's time frames.
That's very well said. I couldn't really agree more. But then also jumping into that, really, we got to know a little bit about your story, about how everything came to be. So how did everything came to be for you, Connell? And what was it like when you started school? Was it a little bit of a was it a bit of a difficult patch?
I would say when I first started school, so this is when I was about 5, and it's okay. I'm gonna put a bit of a positive spin on this, and it's a funny story, by the way, for the viewers listening. So basically, I was non-verbal at the time. I didn't really like school. I wasn't really, and I remember one time I was absolutely kicking off, didn't want to go to school. I was in my pajamas, and I remember I was continuously kicking off, and then my mother took me to school in my pajamas, and I got changed in the school toilets into my uniform. Honestly, I don't tell this story a lot. I've told this to family and some of my friends, but this story that I'm telling right now is out in the open. So yeah, I think going back to your question, says, so my primary school experience was pretty good. In a way, you experience all the things that typical primary school children experience, really. You don't have to really worry about stuff. The only thing you have to worry about is whether you're going to get an ice lolly at the end of school. But but there was a dark time that I had in school as well. I will say this. So from the age of about 10, this was when I started to get bullied horrifically. It was an awful experience. I experienced this for a year and a half. So I experienced horrendous and awful bullying every single day. And do you know what the worst part is, Sarah?
Hmm.
I was actually suicidal at that age. And you think to yourself, a kid should not be even thinking about that at that age. A kid should be living carefree, um, anxiety free, without a care in the world. But ultimately, I sadly experienced that, and it just wasn't nice. I was bullied mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, and it was not nice. And it took a really, really long time to get this sorted out. And when you think that, um, when you try to go to the people who you think you can trust and sort this out, um, it took to the point of having to get the police involved. And I'm not going to name my bully at all, because it's just not worth it. But I will say this to anyone out there who continuously puts down an individual every single day: you are a coward. It's as simple as that. What gratification do you get out of calling someone names, bullying them mercilessly? And that was exactly what I experienced. This is one of the things that I'm passionate about: anti-bullying. And schools, in particular, I'm not being critical, but schools, say they have this anti-bullying policy, and they say they stick to it. But when it actually comes down to it, when a child is getting bullied and they tell a teacher, they tell whoever, a lot of the time that tends to get brushed aside because it's a big problem. They don't want to deal with the big problems, and that is an issue in our society.
And that's definitely understandable and agreeable, really, because from the way you said it there, Connell, training needs to be upgraded, or there needs to be like extra training, if those are the right terms for it.
Yeah, and I do think there needs to be. I would say I'm a big advocate for teacher training for understanding around SEND. I'm a massive advocate for that. But I think I think training for knowing how to prevent bullying, knowing how to spot that, and knowing when a child is not feeling themselves. I think that's one of the things that I don't know if that's incorporated in teacher training, but in some way or form that does have to be put in there. Or even just a training course based on how to spot the signs that someone's being bullied, like a course like that. And going back to my story real quick here. So school at that time was just not good at all. I dreaded school. I used to count down the minutes and the hours till school day started to finish. It was simple as that. I hated school. I absolutely despised it. And I think what you've got to take from what to anyone out there who's being bullied, I'm gonna say this to you now. I know it sounds cliche, but you know things will get better. I know it sucks, and I know you feel like you're worthless, and you feel awful within yourself, but you are valued, you are wanted, you are amazing and inspirational and talented. Like you should know that. Don't let the words of a bully or anyone like that even affect you, because they're not on your level. They are not on your level at all. So continue to shine and keep being you.
Oh, that's brilliant. I really couldn't agree more. And it does hit you on the heart quite there, really, because these are the bits that people really need at this time, especially during the pandemic, because I don't know if this is really true or if this is really false, but I could imagine, and this is something from one of my boyfriend's members of the family, because she's got two children who are in secondary school,
Yeah.
and she said on a Facebook post, and I don't mind, hopefully they won't mind me saying this, but she said on a Facebook post that parents are saying things to children that children don't really find comfortable really as well. And she said no wonder that the children are getting bullied a lot at school and at on the streets, or maybe at home even more now.
They might be getting fed that from their parents, and because parents are role models for their children, and kids mimic things. They mimic what you do, how you act, and what your actions are. So I'm not saying that all parents who have of a bully are bad. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is it might be that the reason that they may be bullying a particular person is because they might be mimicking the actions of a parent, because parents, adults can be equally as spiteful, if not more spiteful,
Oh yeah,
than
definitely.
children.
Yeah, definitely, because you just don't really not know when it just picks up really, because when you hear about a toddler like screaming, saying, this is just an example, if you hear a toddler screaming to a mummy, don't hold me, get away from me, and
Yeah.
you just think how awful for that child to say, but then you've got to stop and think for a minute, because you just think, what if it's not the child itself? Well, what if it's the parent?
Yeah, because you basically feed the mouth that feeds you. It's that, and like I was saying, not like parents of bullies who have parents who turn a blind eye to it and think their kid is all this. Stop turning a blind eye to your kid's actions. If they are bullying someone, sort it out and tell them it's wrong and explain why. Because you can't eradicate bullying, like it is physically impossible. But what I will say for people to make a better society is if we're more kinder to one another.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't agree more. And then moving on to the mental health, because I know with mental health, it's always important to look at some things, and then people would always look to guidance and support, really. And you've got these massive, wonderful charities such as the NSPCC, I think that's how you pronounce it. And then another mental charities like NICE, or there's a little bit more, I can't remember, but there are many great the mental health charities in the UK. And personally, I went to one of them when I was little, because I was and I don't normally say this on my channel, but I was sexually abused by bullies.
Sorry to hear that.
It's all right. It was just both as a child and when I was at drama school, and it was really awful, really. But then you just got these fantastic charities who are right there for you, and the NSPCC is one of them. I still give them massive gratitude for everything that they do, really. And I know that with so many charities, they work very, very hard. But then if people don't want to look into charities, they can look over to people who have been through these experiences, such as family members, friends, or even something online like a podcast.
Yeah, and there is a lot of podcasts out there around mental health, and and I think it's important as well for men in particular to speak out about their mental health, because men put up this front. We often have. There's often this stigma where men are a bit, strong, motionless. They don't show emotion or express emotion, and that in turn can just lead to long-term problems like, depression, anxiety, trauma, all sorts of things, and even like sleep out. I know. Like sleep out. Is it, what's that thing for sleep? Is it
I really cannot remember, but I think I know where you're coming from, but I can't remember.
Insomnia, that's it.
Yes.
Insomnia. And these are just examples of what could cause a mental health problem if you just don't speak out about it. And I had like 6 weeks counseling this year to basically go back into my past, to go back to all the mental health troubles I've had throughout my teenage years. I'm 20 now, but I think in terms of my overall experiences of like mental health, I've always been someone that's tended to not want to burden people with my problems, and that is toxic. I will admit, like, you don't want to. That's probably a toxic trait that I'm trying to get rid of, because if you don't tell someone, then it's just going to get worse for you in the long run. Like, if you just tell someone, it just takes a huge weight off your shoulders, and it's a lot easier on you, and it gets a lot more bearable.
And it's kind of like you're saying though, because the way you explained it, Connell, is my mum always used to tell me that she always used to say, and this is what I'm passing on to everybody as well, because it has helped me, even though I struggle, but I can imagine it would really help everyone as well. Imagine if you have a jar and you name it the jar of worries. And every time you feel worried about something, each worry will go into that jar until it's completely full and you feel very worried about everything, and it makes you like very sad, or it makes you feel like it can make you feel depressed or anxious or worried. But then when you chat to somebody, it's very important to try and feel relaxed, to let all of the worries go. And I think that is a very perfect way to describe this, really. So imagine you have all these fears and worries inside that jar in your head, and when you talk to someone, just unscrew the jar and just let everything go. That's just a way to just make you feel less worried about everything in the world, really.
I 100% agree, because the analogy you use is impressive there, because when you release that jar, you almost feel cleansed of your problems, and the worries are a bit less, and like I said, it does get bearable.
So it does become unbearable to try and show your emotions, and sometimes you always have to believe as well what people want to share or want to see, because I know that if you are feeling worried or scared, be like Elsa from Frozen, show yourself and don't actually hide away from the world, really. And I mean, I know it's Disney and everyone doesn't really like Disney as much, but this is the thing I remember, really, or let it go.
Oh yes, yeah, basically just let it go. That's all you gotta do. All you gotta do.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a thing just to focus on that as well. And then I want to know, like, when you said, because did you say you were seeing a counsellor for 6 weeks at the moment?
I was, yeah. And I had counselling back in February. I think it was February. I can't really remember, but yeah, I had counselling, and to say it was beneficial was an understatement, because even though it's done online, obviously, due to COVID, I just benefited so much from it, just speaking about a complete stranger about my mental health issues, and being more kinder to myself, because I, everyone can be guilty of being a perfectionist. Me in particular, I was very much guilty of it. And if something wasn't up to a standard I would beat myself down and criticize myself continuously. So I needed the counselling in particular to go back into my past almost, in order to cleanse myself from all of my worries and problems. And that was probably the only way that I was able to do that, because the scars of the bullying I experienced are still there. It's doesn't go away, but it does make it a lot better that I can speak about this. And suicide is quite a big thing as well, especially with mental health. And suicide rates have not only gone up in men but women as well. And it's just absolutely saddening, because I don't know if I've been open about this before. I actually did a video. I did 11-minute video, and it got like I put it on Facebook, and it got absolutely mental views, because I spoke about my experience of being suicidal. And the comments, the love and the support I got was absolutely astronomical. And I was just like, wow, you know. And then going back to last summer was just like, feels such ages and ages ago now. I just left college. I did a sports course at college, and um, basically when you sort of leave somewhere, you're like, where do I go next? What am I going to do? And my mental health last summer was an all-time low, to be truthful with you. And it got to a point where I was suicidal. I had suicidal thoughts. It genuinely wasn't a pleasant experience. There was an instance where if I walked out front of a car, and it was going to hit me, I would have just stopped. That was where my mind state was at the time. And it just wasn't nice for anyone to it just wasn't nice for me to experience. It wasn't nice for anyone around me to experience me basically, feeling like that. It just wasn't a nice experience for me. It was awful. It was terrifying, to knowing that your head is just completely in a complete different mindset. Your head is completely just gone off the rails, and I felt like I'd gone off the rails. It was simple as that. And when I was just I was sat on the field, I was just cried my eyes out, cried my eyes out, phone turned off. I said I was going to end it, and everyone tried calling me and finding me, and eventually my auntie found me. So it was kind of a lucky escape, and I just genuinely needed the counselling that I got this year to not only go back to my past, but go back to the recent mental health experiences that I had, to talk about it in a environment where I didn't feel I'd be scrutinised speaking about them. So that was that, really.
I mean, it's always important to have like loved ones around you, and it's also very brave just to like share your thoughts and feelings on like social media. And wow, like the amazing bits on the views on Facebook about suicide, raising awareness for it. How many views did it get on Facebook?
I think it got over 500 views or something like that on there. Because I put it publicly. I was like, oh, people can share this. So if I've, and it got quite a lot of traction from that. And I was like, wow, this is mental. Like, people have just seen me speak 11 minutes or whatever, however many minutes I spoke about mental health. And I put all the numbers of mental health charities or helplines that people can call. So it was that, really. And it's not been an easy journey, if I'm honest with you. And it's a journey that I'm still sort of going through, because it's not an overnight process. It's a continuous, slowly but surely journey that I'm going through. And I would say I'm more than sort of at the middle right now, sort of middle, going upwards, if that's the best way to put it. Like, you're going up the stairs, and feel like I'm almost at the top, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that's fantastic, though. I mean, to get those millions of followings, wow, that's absolutely incredible. And it always goes to show, really, that it's always a step in the right direction. And was that during the time that you started your podcast, or was it a little bit after?
Oh, that was way before I started my podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was way before I started my podcast. And then that's when a few months after that, I was like, I could actually just do a podcast and let's just speak openly about mental health and get people on to do that. And I've had some amazing people on who've spoken about their experiences and have spoken about their life story, and I've taken inspiration from every single one of them. as I'm sure you have when you've had guests on your podcast.
Oh yes, definitely, because I've had so many people, well, so far this year I have so many people coming on from like different kinds of backgrounds and then lives really. And I mean Mason, who I interviewed before and who I mentioned because you know him very well,
Yeah,
Connell, and
yeah,
he said to me that in the episode that we did about Crohn's disease, it's always a bit of an everyday struggle. And then I know that another friend of mine, Alex, who lives in the US, we did a podcast like about in May. He talked about how support is very limited to help people with autism, especially when it comes to law, the law enforcement and
yeah,
the government law as well. So because he feels that at the moment the American system is very weak when it comes to things like that. But it's really interesting to see like loads of different people coming in to talk about their like different stories, and then just feeling very open to share the positive awareness for so many different stuff really. And I think with podcasts that's the aim really, because Mason said to me, he said that before he started it he never had heard of a podcast before.
oh yeah,
And
I remember him saying to me.
yeah, and he actually said to me that he wanted to try and get people out there as well. And I think I'm seeing more people doing it because more people want to try and get the awareness out there to not only educate people, but to give other people hope.
Yeah, and I think that's what a podcast can be like. You could do a podcast about literally anything. You can do a podcast about, I don't know, Pokemon, or you could do a podcast about like tech, reviewing tech, and like I said, you can literally do a podcast about anything and anywhere really.
In the world of the internet at the moment, it's a perfect way just to like just be open and then just be yourself really. And I know that some people will find it a bit challenging, but it's interesting to see how to see yourself if you do one when you are online comparing to looking at yourself offline. And I know that I am a very different person when it comes to being offline really compared to online, and it's definitely really interesting to see how everything either plays out or is combined with the two. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah, 100%. It can just be amazing. Like I said, podcasts are a great tool for, education, even comedy, sports. It really does depend on what your preferences are and what the listener wants to listen to. There's plenty of good podcasts out there. So keep listening to Seth's podcast and keep listening to other podcasts as well. So you know,
Oh yeah, definitely. There's many more out there really, and there's more recommendations really I would recommend, including yours, Con now. And then speaking of that, we're going to be moving on to one final question because I know we're going to talk about this forever, but I
oh
know
yeah, I
that
know.
I know that the one final question, well, the two final questions actually. The one main final question which I do is a very positive reinforcement one, but then also I'll have to probably ask you how to like look at your podcast really
Yeah,
for those who
yeah,
want to check you out. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so with the first final one, what advice would you give to someone who's going through a really tough time right now and is feeling lost or alone in the world, not knowing what to do as soon as like everything's back to, I wouldn't say normal, but semi-normal post-pandemic?
I know there's a lot of anxiety around, unlocking and sort of going back to normal, and and people have been stuck inside for an incredibly long time. And I know that also people's mental health have been affected by also staying inside, and I know it can be an incredibly dark time, and and you will get through that. You will get through that one way or another, whatever way you choose to do it. You will get through it, but please speak to someone. Whether that's your friend, family member, even your dog. Just speak to someone about what you're going through, because it's important to get that burden off of your shoulders. And once you even speak to one person, it just makes things a whole lot easier. So please continue to express emotions and continue. And basically, when you get out of that dark place, when you get out of the dark place, you'll be the happiest person. And that can be anything. What happiness is perception.
That's definitely really good advice. I really couldn't agree more. And as well as that, what additions would you give? Because I know that I couldn't really help but smile, Ruse, like talking to someone. And if you got no one to talk to, you could talk to your pet. That really made me smile, really, because people always just think, oh, animals don't know about everything. They do. They
Oh yeah,
absolutely do.
they can sense when you're feeling sad. Animals are more intelligent than we think.
Definitely. And then with like the extra addition to that, do you think what hobbies would you include really to help people's mental health?
So, hobbies are imperative to what you like. Okay. So for me personally, I like going to the gym. I like playing football. I do like gaming. I do like listening to podcasts. And I do like to do those. I do like to do those things, and they benefit. And going out with friends, and they benefit my mental health. But find something that will find something that will interest you, whether that's a new hobby or whether that's a hobby you already do. Do that hobby, because I guarantee it will make you feel a lot better mentally.
No, that's definitely, I really couldn't agree more. And then we've got to leave it there. Connell, thank you so much for coming on today. And how do we check your podcast out?
Yeah.
Are there any links for people to follow? Oh,
So,
sorry.
basically, we've got a Facebook and Instagram page. So, Time Out of Connell and Co. Do check that out. We are on all streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, all the streaming platforms that you can think of. So yeah. So basically, if you want to take a listen to my podcast, that's series 3 is going to come out in July. So if you're a new listener, that'll be great to have you guys listen.
Oh, that's definitely great. I definitely have to check out a listen at some time, really, because that's fantastic in everything you do. And then also, if you are struggling or if you're feeling alone, both in the description of my podcasts with the personal info and on my YouTube channel, which I will leave links in the description box down below as well, I will include all of the helplines. If anyone at any time has been affected by something in the podcast you are listening to or watching to right now, or you just need someone to talk to, you shouldn't really feel alone, and the help and the wonderful people with these helplines will be able to provide you with support no matter what happens. And we're definitely all in this together for this one. So Connell, once again, thank you so much for coming on today, and it was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and good luck for the rest of the podcast, and good luck as well for the finishing with your therapist as well. I hope it really goes well. I really hope it really goes well, and I'll be thinking of you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. My counselling has, finished now, so I've done really well with that. So
oh, I didn't realize it was finished.
no,
You might have mentioned, I must have skipped that, sorry, but yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, once again, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh no, you're welcome. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Connell. And yeah, well, it's definitely been an absolute pleasure. And in next month's podcast, I will going to be continuing with a new episode with a very special guest. And until then, everybody, I will see you next month. Take care of yourselves. Bye.